Okay, got a really simple review today. Going to take a look at this tiny little 060 type of engine. Got it used on eBay, as so many of my engines tend to come from. It's also one of the first ones I got when I started collecting these. So put it out on the track and you'll see how it runs. Alright, here it is in all of its glory, right on the track as promised. As always, got a tiny little train behind it because it is a tiny little engine. We'll get it going here so you can see how this thing kind of puts on down the track. See, it stalls every now and then a little bit, but then it gets going. Little on the loud side. At least looks good in motion. Now, according to the listing, it's a model power. However, I see no markings on the engine anywhere to indicate that it is one, so I don't really know. It didn't come with any sort of box or anything. It's definitely of the older variety, and I don't know really anything beyond what you're looking at. For the look, it's not terrible. It's got a lot of these little bitty stacks and bells and whistles on top, which is nice. I'm giving it a 6 because even though it's kind of simple and small, it still looks decent. Doesn't have any sort of lights. Materials, it feels super cheap. Just looking it over here, it's very plasticky, very lightweight, very simple. You can tell it's only really one paint scheme throughout, the simple black. Made of all plastic, more or less, except for the wheels, obviously. But yeah, I'm giving it a 3 because it does feel super cheap. It's also very old, so I'm sure this is from like the 80s, I would think. Commonality, you see these all over the place, so it's not too unique. I'm giving it a 3 here as well for this stat, because you do see these quite often. They pop up all the time. There's nothing too special about this one. Like I said, I bought it mainly because it was one of the first ones I got for a fairly decent price, and I'll go into that a little later. But you do see these kind of all over the place as part of your low-end, like, starter type of engine, if you will. For the noise level, you probably heard it can get pretty loud. It's not really a piercing screech, so I can't give it a full 10, but it is getting a 2 because it is pretty loud. Didn't really expect anything less, to be honest, from this type of older engine. On the cheap side, certainly, so I'm not surprised. Power needed to get this thing going. It's actually pretty decent. I'm giving it a 7. It starts to move around halfway up the dial, which is kind of standard for most engines there. So not terrible, not that bad. For motor strength, The cars I've been pulling with is probably the most it can pull. It's starting to struggle, as you could probably tell from the video. So you can't really pull too many more than the 5 I got going now behind it. So it doesn't really have too much pull at all. I'm giving it a 3 because it is pretty weak from a motor pulling perspective. Alright, here is the famous slow crawl test. You can see it trying to get around that corner. Really kind of jerky and not smooth. Not exactly... I wouldn't expect any difference. It at least can go slow, I guess, but it's still gonna get a 2 from me. Because, well, look at it. Now, derailment, this thing ain't going anywhere. It's got these huge lips on these 3 little wheels, so it's pretty solid. It's easy to pick up and easy to put back down right on the track. No problems whatsoever in terms of derailment. So it's getting a 9 flat out from me. Pretty good, probably its best quality. As far as problems go, right on the front here, if you can tell, its little coupler has broken off. It was broken when I got it, when it arrived in the mail. It even looked broken when I went back and checked the fine detail of the ad. Didn't really want to complain about it too much because it's only the front. I mean, who cares? If anything, it just is now an easy thing to use to push things around as opposed to coupling with something. The back is the one you want to have, obviously, because that's the key one to pull in the train. So I'm not going to complain about it too much, but I am going to dig it back down to a 7. And that's really the only problem I can really talk about this. Every now and then it might stall on the track somewhere, but it's not that big of a deal. So it's getting a 7 overall for the problems. Price to value, I won this off of auction for a little over $15, and with shipping that bumped it just shy of $20. I think that's about what these things are going for if you look around. Somewhere around 15 to 25, from what I can tell, is what these things go for on eBay and such. Like I said, it's an older model, didn't really expect too much, just wanted a cheapo one to run around in addition to the other 3 I bought from the get-go when I first started doing this. Don't really use it too much. I think I just mainly kind of keep it in the display case because it is a little unusable. But it still works. I mean, you can't really complain about that. So, from what I paid for what I'm getting, I'm giving it a 4. I mean, $20 is still $20, but I knew what I was getting into when I bought this. It sure seemed like a real cheaper type of engine that I didn't expect too much out of. So somewhere down the middle, leaning towards the a little bit overpaid spectrum is where I'm going to put this one. Alright, when you total it all up, comes in at 46. Ends up being the worst engine I have rated so far, unless you count that broken one, which I was able to return, by the way. Didn't really expect too much from this one. I think 46 is still a pretty decent score for what it is, as I don't think this one's going to win any awards anytime soon. That's pretty much all I have for now. As always, let me know what you think below, and stay tuned for more.